everybody. Welcome to my favorite shitty movie. I'm very excited about tonight. I've owned multiple copies of this movie that Roger Corman produced. It's called Humanoids from the Deep. Here's my Blu-ray copy because you got to have this in the highest definition possible. I own all movies called Humanoids from the Deep. I'm very excited to talk about this. We'll get into it. Tracy is not here tonight. She's producing a film, which she hopes doesn't end up on this show, but it very well might. You don't know. We don't know. We'll have to see how it turns out. But she's busy. So I have a guest co-host in writer-producer Mark Haynes, and I'm very excited to have him help me out while Tracy is gone.
How you doing? Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, and even happier that I got to see this movie.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't seen before.
You brought our guest. I'll let you introduce our guest when we bring him out. But you had a guest, and we were talking before the show, and I'm very excited. Yeah, this is a man who understands me and understands my tastes in films. So it's exciting to have him present Humanoids from the Deep.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you seen the remake? Have you seen it?
No, this was my first experience today.
You've never seen this before at all?
No, I hadn't. And I, of course, I'm looking at the, Marty came with a couple of movies. I'll let him kind of give the genesis of how we landed on this movie for tonight. But he comes with a cast, Roger Corman, of course, in there producing, or kind of in the background producing, I guess. Doug McClure, Ann Turkel, the late Vic Morrow. I mean, and then a number of people that you would recognize from 80s television. Kind of
Vic Morrow was the guy who died making a Spielberg movie, right?
Yes, he died during the making of The Twilight Zone, interestingly enough, without too much foreshadowing, playing a character almost exactly like the character he plays in this movie. But
not a lot of necessarily a lot of range, but
that's what I was saying. Is like, I was thinking before the show, it's like, the script at any point during his career, if a script called for a bigot, they're like, Vic Morrow, get him in for a read. We need to see it. I mean, that's the way it seems. I mean, he has a much.
I can only hope to get to that place, to be in the place where somebody goes, nobody's going to do this but Todd Anderson. That's all I want.
It's like, and they're like, bring him in, and they're like, bring him in for a read. No, he's got it.
He's the guy.
Bring him in.
Yeah, we read all these other people. They can't do it. Yeah, it would be great. I love this movie. This was definitely one of those. I mean, I was brought up Catholic, so it was a movie I wasn't supposed to see.
Sure.
I put it like in the same camp as Extra and The Beast Within, like these like alien creatures whose whole thing is raping women.
Well, the cover art kept me from seeing this movie for 40 years.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yes, because it's like, when this movie was in the video stores in the early 80s, I would walk over and Mom would be, no.
Well,
that's not happening.
Of course your mom said no.
In the intervening years, I lost track of this movie and never got around to it until today. And it is amazing.
We're different on that way. The movies I was forbidden to see got lodged in my brain until I finally saw them. And in some cases I forgot about them.
I'll tell you the one that's really stuck in my brain just because of the cover, and if I'd mentioned this before, we could put the artwork up, is a movie called DEF CON 4. And it's about a bunch of astronauts returning to Earth after an apocalypse. And of course, the art is amazing, but even the stills on the back, you're like, this looks like really cheap movie. I just, so there was that one. Then of course, a dog and his boy, a boy and his dog.
Oh yeah, that's a great exploitation sci-fi movie. Did you see? If you like those kind of movies, did you see ISS?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
It's very fun. It's a very fun B movie. I think it's like wildly underrated by critics, and it's like a 90-minute movie. If a movie is 90 minutes, it needs to be judged differently than a movie that's 2+ hours. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
ISS has its imperfections, certainly, narratively in all levels, but a B movie does, because a B movie, like a B movie is like $40 million, which is crazy. Like $40 million would more than fix my life, but we still talk about movies that it only had 20 million. It's so sad.
How can you make a movie with only $20 million? I mean, this thing cost less than lunch on that movie.
Yeah, Humanoids from the Deep cost lunch. I agree. ISS is very fun. You should watch it.
Check it out.
But speaking of science fiction, we're talking about this Humanoids from the Deep movie. Would you please introduce our guest to the audience, and I will bring him on.
Our guest who will be taking us through this cinematic masterpiece is none other than Mr. Marty Grosser, who anybody who is familiar at all with the comic book, pop culture, toys, models world has heard of Previews and Diamond Comic Distributors. And Marty is the editor of that catalog and is responsible, along with many other people at Diamond, for bringing us all these amazing things that we find on the credibility bookshelves in Hollywood. And so, and he is also a writer himself. He's got a new comic book coming out, I think, in a month or two. I'm not sure. He'll tell us exactly when. And it's an amazing, amazing new take on the Frankenstein monster story. And it's called The Gun Hand, and that's coming from a company called American Mythology, which I had the pleasure of writing Stargate Comics for several years ago. And
The Gun Hand, by the way, I'm just going to throw this in. The Gun Hand is such a good title.
Oh, it's
a really good title.
If I finally,
it's one of those titles where I was like, wait, there hasn't been a gun hand thing before.
Right.
Oh, I didn't.
And I mean, it just it's just an amazing piece of work. I mean, when it comes out, I think they're going to spark to it. It's awesome. Really good, and he's waiting on me to actually finish lettering it, so that's part of why he's like,
what the fuck, man? What are you doing this show for? Jesus.
It's just the sound effects that are left. I need to do the sound effects.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Marty.
Hey, everybody. Greetings.
There's Marty. It's thank you for bringing us this movie. Thank you for having a comic book with a great title, which they don't always have. And thank you for being here. I'm very excited to talk about this movie. I'm very excited that both you guys, Mark just saw this for the first time, but when was the first time you saw it, Marty?
I saw it first run in the proper setting of a drive-in in Northern California, the Sunrise Drive-In in Sacramento, California, Citrus Heights, actually, and saw it with a couple of high school buddies, and we laughed our asses off. And it was on a double bill with something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was
probably Chud or some other humanoid movie.
Yeah, it was something similar to that.
Yeah,
but really enjoyed it. And I'd watched the movie again like sometime in the 90s, and I rewatched it again yesterday for the first time in years. And wow, it really holds up badly.
Yeah, but what I love about Humanoids from the Deep as a shitty movie is how well paced it is. There's constantly stuff happening. It's tonally different from sequence to sequence, maybe, but
Yeah.
they're always like pouring more stuff in that you have to hassle with, which I really love about it. I guess like one thing I realized watching this again was what I love about bad movies is when they're well paced and around 80 minutes. Like it's the perfect length for a piece of shit movie is 80 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they made them that short back in the day so they could squeeze a couple of them into a program, you know. And
yeah, I mean the drive-in thing, it like I think was so good for movies in general that you were forced to, you know. Sidebar: the first movie I attended as a baby was The Godfather in 1972 at a drive-in, and I don't think that's the way. I don't think that's the way you should watch The Godfather at a drive-in, even if you're an adult. Never mind being a baby. But I saw drive-in. I went to drive-ins in the 80s that were like dying out. But I loved seeing movies at drive-ins. I saw Goonies there. I saw Gremlins there. I saw all this crazy stuff there. And then I'd look at the newspaper ads that had the double features in the local drive-in where I was, and it was, I would be like, oh. And there were always things like Humanoids from the Deep, The Beast Within, you know, Extra, all these things that looked like really bad that I should not, as a Catholic child, see.
Yeah.
But I was drawn to them. So I was naturally drawn to this, and I didn't get to see it until, you know, it was on VHS. That's how I saw it.
I was lucky. I had really liberal parents. They were German. Immigrants to this country. They came in the late 50s after the war, and they lived in New York for a few years, had my brother, and then they moved out to California, and that's where I was born. And we would go. My dad worked on the weekends. You know, he would go to the restaurant he worked at, and he'd be there Friday night, Saturday night. So invariably, my mom would load me and my brother in the car, and we'd go to the drive-in. So in Northern California at the time, this is in the mid 60s to early 70s, we had 5 or 6 drive-ins in the area that we could choose from. And
that's crazy.
We had our pick. I mean, I saw on a double bill, and I'm like 6, 7 years old. I saw Easy Rider and Little Foss and Big Halsey. That was my brother. My brother said he wanted to see that because he was.
How old were you when you saw those at a drive-in?
I mean, I was a kid. You know, I was a kid.
You were like 8 or 9.
Easy Rider did. No, I was like 6 or 7 years old, something like that. I don't know. I saw.
You shouldn't have been going to those movies.
I know, but my mom was, you know, she didn't care, and
she couldn't leave him at home.
But she was a good mom.
Yes,
I mean, the first R-rated movie that I saw in the theater was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, they took me to see that, and I loved it. It's a fantastic movie. So they always kind of fed me media and stuff that maybe I wasn't old enough for, but you know, I got something out of it anyway. You know,
that's great.
So given the way you were brought up, going to drive-ins, I think that's a huge deal. I was brought up going to drive-ins over the summer. That's when I got to go. But it sounds like you got to go a lot more. So
yeah, I mean, we did.
Yeah. So given that, what is your personal definition of what a great shitty movie is? Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's a movie you're embarrassed to like, but there are so many qualities about the film that that strike a chord with you in the things that you like or are interested in, like monsters or, sci-fi or whatever, that the badness of it just is not an issue, and also I think a good shitty movie is something that you can look back on and kind of have, a good remembrance of, and it's almost the experience of seeing it and the people you're with, because I always saw, when I was in high school, we'd go to the drive-ins around town all the time. I mean, we saw the original Evil Dead and Night of the Zombies on a double bill. Oh my God, we laughed our asses off on Night of the Zombies because that movie is so padded with stock footage of wildlife. The whole thing's supposed to take place on New Guinea, and at one point they're showing like flamingos flying and stuff, and we're sitting there in the car, and me and my buddy Joe, we're going like, hey Giuseppe, what does the flamingo sound like? And he goes, I don't know, maybe it's a bigger bird like a turkey maybe, and they were actually dubbing in turkey noises when these things were flying. It's a horrible movie, but it's also got some great effects in it for the budget.
Well, which is definitely true about Humanoids from the Deep. I just wanted to point out Jeff's comment. His last drive-in experience was a double bill of Ricochet and Last Boy Scout, which sounds perfect. It sounds perfect.
There were clearly people who were managing or booking films into these drive-ins who knew what they were doing.
Well, exactly. I just rewatched Ricochet like 4 days ago.
Who's in that? I'm sorry.
It's Denzel Washington, John Lithgow, and Ice-T.
As you would expect.
I don't know.
And John Lithgow is a psycho criminal who,
of course, he is.
Denzel Washington runs into at a amusement park or some kind of park. And
I'm starting to remember this now.
And in order to thwart John Lithgow's psychosis, Denzel Washington strips down to his boxer shorts, and that throws off John Lithgow so much that he's captured, but then he escapes, and Denzel Washington has no choice but to call his old gangster friend Ice-T to help fix the problem. It's bad. It's not Last Boy Scout.
Yeah. What year was Ricochet? Was that 1990 something?
Is 91.
91. So that's the difference between 1991 and 2024 is that back then Ice-T could fix your psycho killer problem, and now he fixes your car based on the Car Shield commercials. So
or he fixes your problems with Law or Order in a special victims unit arena.
I love the Car Shield commercial where they do it like an episode where it's him and Vivica A. Fox, and they're kind of like the car is a murder scene, like how could this have happened?
There's a shot of her in one of those commercials where I was like, I mean, I get bad regional local commercials. I get it. It's a thing. But you've got Vivica Fox and you light her so you can't see her face. You cannot see her face. It was like amateurs who don't know how to light anyone who's not entirely white. Those commercials are fucking amazing. And also awful because I'm not as successful as Vivica A. Fox. And I need to get some regional commercials, I guess.
Yeah. Car Shield would be awesome. That's the thing. Like, you could be the shifty mechanic that's there to steal people's money.
I am ready to be a shifty mechanic. So Marty, we're going to ask you to kind of take us through, like imagine you're talking to a person who's not seeing Humanoids from the Deep, and they have no way of seeing it. So you have to explain it to them you're on a desert island. Why'd you pick Humanoids from the Deep? That was weird of you, Marty. But I actually have this on Blu-ray, as I showed earlier. But when I watched this for the show, I watched it on Shudder. And it's different on Shudder because it starts with this.
That's the version I saw on Freevee today.
Yeah. That's the version I saw on YouTube yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, on my version, the Blu-ray version, they actually call it Humanoids from the Deep. It's just the same shot with a different title.
Well, it does say Humanoids from the Deep under Monster in very small print.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. It's here
in
really
it was in the process of popping up there, I think, when you take the picture.
Monster, Humanoids from the Deep.
So Marty, what happens in this movie? Like, just walk us through it.
Oh my God! And it can be broadly.
I know.
We're gonna interrupt.
We talked about the pacing before, but this is an 80-minute movie, in which so much happens. There are so many characters.
Oh,
there are so many set pieces. There's
so
many
much
plot
happening. Points. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, a small. Is it Oregon or Washington?
I believe it's Oregon.
It's Oregon.
License plate say California, but we'll let that
but
go.
It's never actually any of those places.
A small fishing town on the west coast of the United States
that might have a boat called Nip and Tuck.
They might. They are suffering through a shortage of fish, and fishing is, of course, the local economy. And
it's very relatable to me right now as an actor. There's not a lot of acting.
And a big cannery or a corporation wants to open a cannery in the town, and they're promising them the world, where they're going to increase the salmon population and bring jobs and security and all this stuff. And of course,
that's huge. I just want to here's locals, and that's
this. I can jump in here very quickly and say this is the aforementioned Vic Morrow, who for a span of his career in the late 70s and early 80s was just credited as bigot in like whatever part they brought him in, because that scene takes place about, not saying I checked the time code, but about 3 minutes 36 seconds into the movie, and you get your first kind of racist kind of comment from him to the local Native American guy who was on the other picture you have.
I think what I'm going to throw this Marty, this photo, which is the director's credit in the opening. Barbara Peters. I just find the whole Barbara Peters versus Roger Corman behind the scenes so interesting, because she is making this movie. She is making what is essentially an exploitation movie, but then Roger Corman made it way worse by inserting, graphic exploitative rape scenes, into the movie that she had not. And she had shot nudity, as I am to understand, but there was nudity like it just in sexual things, not, things being torn off by monsters from the sea.
Right.
Yeah. So I just like that whole element of this movie is really interesting to me. So
Jeff popped
what's
in
your
with
take
a
on
comment.
that?
Jeff popped in with a comment about that too.
Oh, good. I'll get here's Jeff's comment. Peters wanted her name off the movie, but Corman refused. Wouldn't even Alan Smith here. Yeah, that's fucked up. Like, what the fuck, Roger Corman? Like, she wanted to take her name off your rape movie.
Does your Blu-ray have the non-Cormanized version available on it, or no?
I don't think it exists.
I know. I was.
No, I mean, I don't think it does. Have you seen that?
No, I was actually just kidding because as Marty mentioned there, he's like he doesn't think it exists, and I'm pretty sure it wouldn't either.
I don't think like a original cut exists.
I mean, I think if you got to look at the screenplay, you could tell where Corman came in and went, well, let's just put this in here and this. You know?
I'm feeling like that the scenes that he cut out to make room in the 82 minutes were for like character development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
I wonder what ended up on the cutting room floor because Roger wanted to spice it up for the drive-in set.
It would be a tough choice.
Yeah,
it's just so fascinating to me that Roger Corman thought the best route to make drive-in money on this movie was to put in like more Death Wish style rape sequences.
Right.
And they're awful. They're awful. And like when you watch it, you know, for me, guy was like, "Oh fuck, there's no reason for this," because the rest of the movie is kind of B movie great. You know, it's got all the action, it's got all the twists and turns, it's got the super drama with relationships.
It's like the horror of Party Beach, just rapier. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, that's scary.
Well, I mean, to put it bluntly, I mean.
So Marty, we have our first few minutes of the movie right after this, which involves a bunch of fishermen. And
they're giving you the lay of the land there as well. I think Marty might have froze it, but yeah, they're giving you kind of the setup where you find out about the canning company that's coming in, promising the world. And, you know, I guess there's the one holdout, which they never really get onto too much, is the fact that I guess the cannery is going to be built or needs to be built on native land. And I think that's kind of the.
Did they not see Poltergeist?
Well, this is native land that people are still living on, which is the difference, I think, between this and Poltergeist, amongst other things, but specifically the budget. But anyway, Marty, back to you.
Okay. Yeah. So they I don't know where
they got.
Well,
okay, so it's
we can start with the fishermen are going out. Yeah.
It hits all the Jaws-esque things. So after we introduce the characters, we go out on a boat with fishermen, like in a dad and a kid.
Yeah. So these guys go out on a boat and they're fishing. They hook something, and you know it's they're fighting with it, and it looks like the scene from Jaws, you know, where they're tying the barrels to the back of the boat, and something is caught in their net, and all of a sudden they're trying to reel it in, and the winch stops, and the father turns back to his kid, who I'm convinced was the kid who played Augustus Glump in Willy Wonka.
Oh, really? Did you look that up on IMDb?
He looked like 6 years before this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the kid, he looks like Augustus Glump. Anyway, he yells at the kid, you know, you've been sitting back there, and he's reading a comic book, by the way. Thumbs up for that. But
that's the beginning of the pop culture saying comics are bad. That's a continuation of it.
Yes, they keep you from minding the gas tank on the winch. So he tells them to fill it up. God damn it. And he proceeds to get a jerry can and start filling it with this little funnel. And meanwhile, back at the aft of the boat, things are getting worse. And he says, "Son, get down here and help us." So they're all struggling.
Well, and he gets mad at the kid for like
everything.
The boat runs out of gas, and he gets mad. He's a
really
bad dad.
He tells he's awful. He's yelling at everybody, and he's a horrible actor, by the way. It's just his
Why
readings.
is he horrible? I believed everything he said. I
His,
just
his,
thought
re-
he was a douchebag.
his readings were bad, just
Oh.
terrible readings. But
I
he
don't.
also
I mean, like on the page, do you think it was that great?
no. No.
I mean, like you can only hold actors accountable so much.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm just saying, not everyone can rise above their material. I can.
You know, in this movie, Anne Turkel was really trying. We'll get to her in a minute. Like,
yeah.
So
he yells at the pilot to get the boat going, and of course, something's wrong. The oil pressure's down. The boat is not going anywhere, and they're struggling with the thing in the net. And Augustus Glump falls in the water.
Oh,
and he's like, "Oh, my son!" And he goes down. There he is. Look at that, Augustus Glump.
That's it. You know, they're like, we need a kid who's like almost drowning. They're like, get the kid from Wonka, get him.
He kind of looks like Corey Feldman a little bit.
And his dad was the character's name was Deke, played by the wonderful Hoke Howell, who was always generally a crusty, angry, grumpy townsperson wherever he appeared.
Like, if you can make a living off of doing that, God bless you. I would love to. Point me in the direction of being grumpy old guy in movie.
So yeah, so they all you know, it ends in an incredible catastrophe.
It's a boat fire. Yeah. It's terrible boat fire.
The aforementioned jerry can falls off the winch and leaks all over the deck. Yeah. And the pilot proceeds to rush out with a flare gun and accidentally sets off that
that happens all the time, right?
Right.
Well,
right.
You know, and I have to point out here too that that explosion, and when they cut to a distance shot because Doug McClure's character's out on his boat, which, you know, looks more like a cabin cruiser than a fishing boat. Well, Jeff was getting it. They get deeper into that as well.
For our audio people, Jeff Luce just said, when I saw this, all I thought of was that so much pollution.
Well, they keep going. Like literally any opportunity to throw something in the water in this movie, they do.
And there's a ton. This is one of the things I love about this movie. They throw stuff in the water. They kill children. They kill dogs. They blow up as much shit as they possibly can. Boats, houses, anything they can. I think that's the mark of a great B movie. It's like,
that's what I was going to say, is that you know, for the level of special effects and other things going on in this movie, that boat exploding at the beginning of Act 1 was great. It looked good. It was not, even from they do this distance shot, and you're like, you know, with flaming debris landing everywhere. It's like somebody was doing a great job.
They blew some shit up. Somebody,
exactly.
They had a Danny McBride from Tropic Thunder working that shit out. Right, Marty, I'm sorry, we keep derailing you. So after the boat blows up, what do we got?
It's a weird segue, actually.
Yeah.
Does it involve this?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, I think that child is the cutest child since Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
He does a pretty good job. That little kid is like, you know, he is a top actor in this film. Actually,
he could be the most believable character.
He looks when the guy, who's that guy, the sheriff?
The guy on the right is the sheriff. Yeah, I don't remember what his name is because he does almost no policing at all.
No, he just like goes to dens and has conversations. But the baby, not baby, but you know, the toddler is looking at his kind of dad. And then when the sheriff says something, the way he looks at him is like genuinely disturbed.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite moments in the movie because the child is just like, oh, I don't like that guy. You can tell the child doesn't and wants to leave. And then he leaves very shortly after. Great performance. I agree with you. One of the best acting performances.
But
So
this is the scene that introduces you to the rest of Doug McClure plays a character named Jim Hill. This introduces you to the rest of his family. And I don't remember, but I think it also is probably where they reveal what his connection is to Vic Morrow's character and the rest of, the fishing. But I completely missed that because the kid's performance was that stunning. It just blew me away. And
the kid is great.
After
the kid is great.
Yeah.
So Marty, what happened shortly after that sequence?
Yeah. I'm, you know what?
Body.
I'm really.
Huh? I'm sorry. I grabbed all these photos while I was watching the movie. So I know in my note detail what's happening. So not too long after this happens.
Yes. I will believe in the background of the previous photo. You see the dog is in the background behind the kid in the previous photo. He's there laying on the ground.
And the dog.
This is where the shit that happened in the water to the kid on the boat now is moving on to land.
Mm-hmm.
And the dog runs outside, and goes out into the forest and meets what we don't know. I mean, we do know, but he winds up not in the best of shape. And
he gets killed.
Yeah.
Rather gruesomely, I might add.
Yeah. Like the puppet work in this, this moment, the way they're moving their weird dog puppet. I hope it's not a taxidermied one, but it's pretty realistic. So I think maybe it was a taxidermy dog that they were fucking with, but it's disturbing.
I don't know.
There's some good work in this.
Rob Bottin, who did the thing for John Carpenter, he did the effects makeup for this, and maybe he did the dogs too, because he did the huskies in the thing also. So
well, that was the first thing, when you finally there's a scene that comes up shortly after.
Yeah,
it's the next day where they're looking for the dog, can't find the dog, and then they're out on the beach, McClure and his wife, and they find the dog, and you're like, oh, it looks very much like an alternative version of what would have happened to the huskies in the thing.
Yeah.
And and this is actually, if I could jump in here real quick and point out this is one of those tonal shifts during the pre-show where we were talking before we actually started, where this movie and a lot of movies at the kind of the B movie 82-minute level don't really bother with segues or tonal shifting concerns in any way, because you saw them on the beach. They're overlooking the dead family pet that's, under mysterious circumstances has disappeared. And almost the very next scene is them arriving at a square dance. And they're happily greeting everybody.
Yeah.
Later that day.
So you see this, and then seconds later, you see this bunch of random guys getting their Olympia beer off their truck. And then you go back to the couple looking for their dog, and then they find it, and he's a just gross mound of gore.
And those guys, of course, when they're removing that beer, they find their dogs are dead also, except for the Native American guy whose character is named Johnny Eagle. So Johnny's dog is still alive. Ergo, Johnny is responsible. That's Vic Morrow's line of thought.
So that brings us to even before we get, I know you guys want to get to this.
Yeah.
But even before that happens, we get one of the things I love about this movie is you have all this Jaws shit happening. You have the town Jaws shit happening, but then it takes its breaks like Jaws did to just show you someone being terrorized by the monster.
Right.
So after the dog death, before the town party, we get this lady.
Oh yeah.
Walking through her house.
I hang on. I've got it right here. What is her name? Oh, I had it. Hang on. Nope, never mind. Continue.
I don't know her name, but I'm a huge fan. And this is her boyfriend that she runs into in the sequence. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this epic clip. I apologize for its length. I didn't have a lot of time to edit, but this is basically the sequence. Ours might be a little longer. I don't know, but maybe not. Here's this sequence that we're referencing right now as played by me and my wife.
Hello? Linda, hi. You startled me. There's some noises. When are you coming over? Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get dressed. I just need to put on some shoes. Okay. Alright. Okay. Okay, bye.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
You asshole.
That's exactly how it went in the movie.
That was. I think you guys got it beat for beat. Actually, I don't think it was too long at all.
Yeah, well, I realized when I was editing it, oh shit, we got it beat for beat. It's too long.
Well, I mean, I was funny because I'm like, this is not only does it shift tonally, but this movie is like, it's a monster movie, it's a corporate malfeasance movie, it's science run amok, and there's a little bit of Psycho in there too, little stalker, and it really has everything for everyone.
It does. It really does. So, okay. Oh, wow. We're getting late. So let's get into the rest. Marty, just talk us through the rest of this narrative. What happens after that?
After that, well, there's the hoedown, the Noyo hoedown.
Noyo County,
yep. And they have the, you see Ann Turkel and the guy in the middle, the short little guy, corporate guy. Curious as hell what his voice actually sounded like. It must have been bad that they had to dub him.
Yeah. The guy sitting in the middle there.
Yeah, the guy sitting in the middle, the one that and she actually dances with him a couple of times in the sequence, and it's as awkward as it sounds.
And Ann Turkel is like 5'11", maybe
right.
6
Well,
feet.
There's a scene where McClure's character is standing next to her and kind of stands up a little, stretches up because she's so tall,
Well,
she's a tall
and that whole sequence, of course, is bringing them is introducing the town to these representatives of the canning company.
Right. And this guy, I thought at first when I saw him in the background, I thought that was the guy from Troma. I thought it was Lloyd Kaufman because it kind of looked like him from an angle, but when I got a better look at him, I was like, nah, that's not him. But so they promised the town the world, and they're gonna. Oh yeah, Johnny Eagle shows up, and well, his dog is dead.
And this has to be.
There's so many dead dogs. This movie is about killing dogs.
It has to be, and that has to be a tranquilized dog.
That is a tranquilized dog. That dog was just too real, too floppy. So
I feel like in certain sequences that's what would happen to the script supervisor too. But that's just me, because they're like, okay, what did he say? And they look over and she's kind of like, Anyway,
I love this because it leads into a parking lot fight sequence that has nothing to do with the rest of the narrative.
And this is the best example yet of the fact that it's literally 6 against 1. They're beating up Johnny, the Native American character. Then Doug McClure runs out and he starts throwing punches. And what's funny is the girl from the reenactment scene, the character's name is Peggy, I believe. Throughout the movie, after the boyfriend shows up at the house and she almost gets him with the barbecue fork, literally anytime you see them, they're making out. Like every time you see them later in the film, regardless of what's happening to them by the end of the scene, and they're in a pickup truck next to the front door of this building,
right?
And he ends up like opening the hatch, like, what the hell's going on? Just somebody clocks him across the face. So there's like some elements where you're like, Barbara Peters was working hard to get some of this stuff, to kind of have a little bit of humor in it. But like you said, and then the cop comes out, they're 6 on 1, and then Doug McClure comes in and
Doug McClure's son also.
Yeah, Doug McClure's son. And I believe, does it end with somebody shooting a gun in the air? Or
the sheriff comes out. You don't see him actually do it, but you hear it. And then he's lowering his gun and he goes, that's it, break it up.
Yeah, just everybody go home. Like he's not, and the gun is as close as he gets to being a policeman.
Like the pacing of this film and the editing, like you get those scenes and they seem like when you're watching them rather long. This is a long fight scene. And then it cuts out of it, and then you're on a boat with this douchebag.
Yeah.
What were they going up there for? Were they going to find Johnny and kind of finish the fight? Was that the idea?
I think that what he's doing here is riding his boat to Johnny's house to find out what kind of damage he can do to Johnny and his house.
Was it damage due to Johnny in order to get the land right for the factory? I think.
Yeah. He was just going. Yeah, he was.
I mean, I literally saw this movie 4 hours ago, and I cannot remember what happened.
It's so bizarre, but it's like I said, it's 82 minutes of film, and so much happens, so it's hard to keep track of it.
Yeah.
So
I've even got like cliff notes from Wikipedia here, and I'm like, I don't remember when this happened.
Well, when they after the fight, it's the next day, and everybody's banged up from the fight. So there's several sequences, like the couple who were in the back of the truck. They're on the beach now, and they're making out. There they are, and he's all bruised. You can see his bruised cheek, and
this is one of my favorite sequences in the movie, because you have this couple making out, and then the lady just down the beach who's checking it out and enjoying the shit out of it.
Oh yeah, she's like staring right at him, right up to the point where they get up and leave.
And then
I just remember looking at that scene and thinking everybody in this scene is freezing their ass off based on the look of the weather. Yeah, especially the ones that had to get in the water.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So they go off. I mean, and again, this movie's constantly intercut with multiple things happening. So this couple goes off to get away from the voyeur, which is not what happens in porno movies. I'm just saying. But so they're
in a porno, the woman on the back there would be up on the cliff and they wouldn't see her.
Right. But in this movie,
I'm guessing.
She's right there.
Or she'd walk over to ask to join them.
Right. Or she would start fantasizing up on the cliff. I'm just guessing.
She wanted to be asked, you guys. You can't just jump into a threesome. But in any event, they're not into
anything goes.
The couple's not into the threesome. So they bail and they go down the beach, and then things happen.
Right.
Yes.
They start they go into some caves or along the beach. And then they wade into the water, and yes, as Mark was correct, it looks cold. Yeah, and they're splashing each other, and suddenly he goes underwater, and she's like, hey, where are you? Where are you? And
he loves doing those jokes. He loves scaring.
Yeah. So he pops Jerry. Yeah. He pops up again, and Peggy goes, ah, and you asshole. And they start making out again, and they switch to a totally just gratuitous scene of him reaching down and going into her bikini bottom.
Yep.
And then he's suddenly
she pretends like, no, don't do that. It's like you're in a Corman movie. He's gonna do that. Like stuff.
And he gets pulled away again. Yeah. And again, she's
and this time quite forcefully he gets pulled away.
Yeah. And she wades out a little further, and he's got his back to her, and she goes, Jerry,
what's wrong?
And she grabs his shoulder and pulls him over, and we get one of the great effects.
The human injury effects in this movie are fantastic for the budget level and the gore factor. You're just like, that literally looks like he got mauled by a giant salmon man. Yeah. I mean, that's what that would look like.
What else would do this to your face but a salmon?
Exactly.
Maybe a cross sea otter. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah. It could,
don't fuck with cross sea otters.
I mean, you see a picture like that and you're like, this is why I shop online on Black Friday.
Yeah.
This is the shit that happens at Walmart now.
So we get the guys get gored, but then what happens to the ladies?
Well,
Oh,
something
you know what
wades out of the surf and drags her away.
and I think this is the first clear shot of the creatures, right? In this scene is where you see that they're bipeds.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
I don't have a shot of the creature from the scene because it actually is very obscured in the movie. So,
Yeah.
like when I took a photo of it, it didn't look like anything. So, but yes, you're right. But then there's, I mean,
Well, he drags. She gets away at first, and kind of runs up the beach, and Seaweed Boy runs after her here, and then proceeds to. And what happens is, at least in the film, as I recall it from 4.5 hours ago, is multiple instances of this happen before we get a scene in a laboratory where the scientist doctor, played.
yeah,
by
they're having a
Paul
hard
Bettany.
time putting shit together.
Yeah, right.
But after this, we can all be happy that the guys in the bar
Or beer.
figure out stuff over beer.
Well,
Those
they
guys,
decide that they're going to take care of Johnny Eagle.
Yeah.
Because he's a native, and we already stomped those people out.
And he's well, as he told him early on in the movie, they lost the battle, but they won the war.
Right. That was.
Yeah, he was like Custer. Johnny brings up Custer in the beginning of the movie.
Battle, but we won the war. Yeah. That's the greatest justification for Custer's loss that I've ever heard.
This movie, it's funny because there's the constant struggle of watching something through the lens of time and making sure it's like, I don't want to apply today's standards, but to something that was made 40 years ago or what have you. But this one, it's like you would lose track of the things that it was kind of running afoul of.
I mean,
in terms of the present day.
I would say it's entirely okay to put today's standards on a movie like this. Like when people, I know we get into the Dave Chappelle territory, but when people complain about this, you can't make this movie anymore. No, you're right. You can't you cannot make Blazing Saddles anymore.
Right.
And it's fine because somebody already did it.
Right.
So why don't you figure out how to make something that fucking funny now?
Right. Exactly. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it and don't try to recreate it.
Yeah,
that's you can't.
Yeah, you can't do it now because you can't say the N-word now and be funny, and that's fine. That's okay. Sorry, Mel Brooks.
I mean,
actually, I hear a lot of guys using that word, but they're Black Canadians too, So
everybody gets to.
They can be funny with it.
But your point's a good one.
I can say ginger whenever I want to. I
would prefer Marianne.
But your point though is a good one, Todd.
What? Mary, I actually spent a night.
Is a good one, Todd, where it says, when somebody says, regardless of what movie they're actually referring to, says you couldn't make this movie today, and it's like you should be sure it's a movie that you would want to remake. Why? Exactly.
Why do you want to remake?
Why exactly?
What word? What word do you want to say that you can't say now? And why does it bother you that you can't say it?
Now, as somebody who is developing and pitching original stories around, I think the reason that people say that so much is because it seems like that's the only thing that can actually get done is something that's been done before. But that's a whole other discussion for more of this.
Actually, you're absolutely right. It's intellectual property.
Marty, I noticed that your beer, as much as you drink it, it never goes down.
It's just something I picked up. It's
you have a magical beer?
Magical beer.
Magical beer, yes.
Yeah,
that reminds me of an old Irish joke, but I'm not going to say it right now. So let's get us through we're going late. All right, let's get it. Okay. So I'm going to throw up photos, Marty.
Okay.
and you tell me what's happening in,
All right.
in these photos.
That I can do. Oh my God. Okay. So this is another.
This took me by surprise. I will
This
admit.
is the weirdest sequence in the whole film. It's late the same night as the beach attack. There's a couple who are camped out on the beach, and the guy's girlfriend is the ventriloquist dummy is seducing the guy's girlfriend.
I know, and she gets full naked. It's not like just topless.
No,
it's full naked for a dummy.
We have Bush. I just will say that.
From Revenge of the Nerd. Yeah, the quote.
Yes, we have Bush.
Used way better in the sequel, Revenge of the Nerds, Nerds in Paradise, where Booger finds a garden of weed and he says, "We've got Bush."
Right.
Yes.
Not misogynistic, and a good use of the joke in a second movie.
I do feel like this scene is the one where, after Peter's turned in her cut to Corbin's like, this needs a little something extra. Give me a setup, a tent, and a ventriloquist dummy, and we'll do it.
No, this is 100%. This scene is all Corman. This is all Corman. She did not know this was going on. And
the dummy's actually Corman's agent. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, so as you would probably expect, the one of the humanoids breaks the mood and kills
the
the
tent
boyfriend.
Gets wrecked, and he gets killed,
and she falls victim to the creature also.
The ventriloquist himself actually ended up with a great wound effect on his back when they did this kind of slashing thing through the tent. It was awesome.
Yeah, because when
I had a photo of that, but it didn't look really good, so I didn't keep it because I have a limited amount of photos. But like one of the things I love about this movie is they blow shit up all the time. So here, like right after what you're talking about, more shit blows up. So
What was that? I don't remember what that was blowing up though. In that picture.
Was that Johnny's house?
Is that Johnny's house? Oh yeah, somebody's on the ground in the foreground there.
Yeah, it's Johnny's house. The
Vic Morrow and his buddies. Yeah, they throw a Molotov cocktail, but it goes off like a hand grenade.
Yeah, but while it's happening, and people are like other characters are fighting against the bad characters. Yeah, they're getting thwarted by like hands like this, and these are chuds. I mean, they're chuds.
Yeah.
They're chuds that are loose. They're not. They're not.
Came up in a discussion. I had a neighbor come by for some dryer sheets actually today, and they're like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, "This is Humanoids from the Deep," and they're like, "Wow!" Like it's like, did that show do Chud? She's like, that and Chud are like my favorite things in the world. And she's like, even today we'll be driving around, and she's like, "You say sinkhole, I say Chud."
That's fair. We don't talk about Los Angeles Chud enough. I mean, clearly. New York has better.
Los Angeles Chud moved from the most of them came out from underground and are now in the city council.
I love in movies when people they like move the sewer top out of the way, and this is a movie that this happens, and they go into the tunnel, like underground, and it's big enough for them to just walk around like it's a French sewer. No sewers are like that, except in France. Most sewers,
there are some
you can't just get in there and walk around. There
are some on the East Coast that are like that.
So are you telling me that? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say some of the ones that and this is history/architecture nerd talk coming, which is Baltimore. Baltimore has some old wood-lined sewer maintenance tunnels that are
that
very
are like
small.
so big you can walk like full
You
up
can walk
right
through
in.
them, you know. I mean, they're not quite as wide. Like I think it like you could walk single file through them, but they are enough so you could stand up, you know. So
I don't know why they make
that's all I got
sewers
on
where
that
you can
topic. So.
stand up.
I was
All right.
just gonna ask. So the storm drains that I saw in them all those years ago, that's all BS.
I think it's total bullshit.
I mean, they were driving Jeeps in there.
You gotta have
Most sewers you cannot walk, you cannot stand upright in because they're just large tubes that are taking shit.
There's a
from one
difference.
place to the
There's a
other.
difference, especially in Los Angeles, Todd. There is the sewer from, you know, the toilet and the gray water from your house, which is a separate system from a storm sewer, which carries, you know, the amount of water carried through Los Angeles is a lot. So there are tunnels that you can drive through.
And isn't that called the LA River?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
LA River. Okay, so it's a runoff. It's not really.
We've settled that.
Runoff.
So there we go. I feel a sense of accomplishment. I feel a sense of accomplishment that the people making this movie must have felt when Barbara Peters shouts, "It's a wrap."
All right. Golly, we like this 80-minute movie. We're at an hour 7. We haven't got through this 80-minute movie yet. So we had that.
Too much good stuff happening in this movie.
There's so much, but that's what I'm saying about this movie. That's what I love about this movie is there's constantly shit going on.
Yeah.
So you have these moments of humanoids killing people, and then there's
this is the artist from the beach. Yeah. This is the artist.
Yeah, she's my favorite because she's a voyeur on the beach. She's the voyeur on the beach. So she's the most relatable character to me because, you know, I like porn. So, and then she gets fucking offed so unceremoniously, and she's just fighting the thing, and then she makes a sad face, and then her car falls off a cliff and blows up.
Right.
I love the car blowing up because it's that model of vehicle from that period of film and television where you're like any car going off a cliff, a bridge, or a highway, you're like, is it going to explode or not? And if it doesn't, you're like, oh.
But in reality, if it explodes, that's a major factory recall, and you're going to make a lot of money off that lawsuit because no vehicle should explode on impact. That's not.
Well, I love the fact that the scene where they're kind of attacking that vehicle. There's one or two of them attacking her in this truck. She's literally screaming for about 2.5 minutes like this. So just one continuous, occasional, like it cuts away for her to take a breath and then she keeps screaming. But all the while she's driving, and at least at one point in the first part of the scene, this is, you know, if you're watching it, there's a section of the windshield cut out. When she drives by, you're like, okay, it's fine. I buy it. I'm in.
Yeah,
by this point, you're in. You know,
it reminds me of that old SNL sketch, Toonsis, the driving cat. It's sort of on that level of silly. Anyway, all right, we already talked about that.
Yeah.
So here's our scientist, journalist lady taking photos of dead humanoids that have also killed ladies because they're encased and stuff. And then someone draws this.
Yeah. The eyewitness. Yes.
So that's like a eyewitness sketch.
That's like the creature from the Black Lagoon meets the Bee Gees. With the hair.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I think actually, Mark, I'm glad you said that because I think part of the reason I love this movie so much is I'm such a creature guy. You know, that's why I was okay with.
There he is.
Oh yeah, there he is. That's awesome. Yeah, the creature's great. That's why I liked the movie that what's his face made that won an Oscar about fucking a fish. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
So I have all these great stills of various creatures. So here's one.
So this is I guess their lair, or at least what they found. Some of these guys living in a cave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this guy.
So at some point, Ann Turkel's character starts commenting about the creatures, and she starts saying stuff like, "It's just as we thought, only far more accelerated." So it's like she actually knows that the company is responsible for these things, and she's impressed with the results. And
I love dialogue like it's just as we thought, but way more accelerated.
There is a scene where she's arguing with that little short guy that was sitting next to her earlier, where he's like, "It's still just a theory," That's like that's the gist of
in his dubbed over voice.
Yeah,
well, it is how science. I mean, to be fair, it is how science works. We've all lived through the pandemic, so we know.
There it is. Yeah.
How it works. Yeah, and here's this thing.
Oh yeah. This is the that's the executive producer, I think.
It's like a baby humanoid, right?
It's either a tadpole or a potato wedge.
All right. Just to get us, because I want to do the after segments that we do.
Right.
Marty. So at this point in the film, like we've come to essentially the third act climax. Who are these people?
Okay, well, this is the local DJ and Miss Fish, I believe, or no, Miss
Salmon.
Miss Salmon, right? And they're doing a live broadcast at the Salmon Festival in town.
Who doesn't have a salmon festival? We all have those.
Well,
and
all of the
over. Sorry.
All of the characters are converging on the festival, and
while the festival is happening, our favorite character from the movie, the cute baby,
he's at home with mom
and in danger. He's in danger,
which is kind of interesting because I'm not sure why. Like, why were they after him specifically, or was it just like she was the last?
Well, she has a baby so she can breed. Is what the humanoids think.
I don't know. I think it's a whole Jaws the Revenge kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
What? Wait, what? That's too hard to process.
That's great.
So they bring a dead humanoid to the Salmon Festival to prove to everyone what's going on. And maybe drawn by the scent of one of their dead compatriots,
or
the dock begins to burst open with humanoids, and they crawl out.
Oh no! Look at that!
And what follows is 10 to 15 minutes of screaming and shooting. It's the noisiest. It's the noisiest thing I have ever heard in my life.
It's so good. Like if you make an 80-minute horror movie, the last 15 minutes should be exactly like this.
Right. And there are far more people trying to escape than were there when they arrived, when the monsters arrived.
I think they bust them in from the other county.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is worth it for the climactic horror sequence. Where you got people getting killed and radio.
I love that Miss Salmon in that photo right there. Miss Salmon. And of course, the radio station is K-Fish, KFSH radio. But the Miss Salmon in this picture literally does this. They cut back and forth to her about 4 or 5 times, and she has this expression every single time. And this monster's advancing on her so slowly. She could literally be like knitting a rope to escape with,
Oh, but
I mean, you don't know how you'd react.
she winds up killing the thing, though.
Oh yeah,
which,
she does.
You know, we were cheering that on.
That's it. She fights back. Back.
Yeah, and God bless her for doing that.
She didn't become Miss Salmon for nothing.
Nope.
Yeah, no. But then the onslaught keeps coming, and
Johnny Eagle is shooting humanoids left and right. People are running for their lives. It's like the end. It's like the parade sequence in Animal House. It's just everyone's running helter skelter.
But deadly.
Vic Morrow even gets called in by a kid to rescue another kid who's hanging off the docks, and he almost dies, but Johnny Eagle, showing the mensch that he really is, helps him up, with his,
and all is forgiven. Everything is settled in that moment.
I don't know if it's all forgiven, but at least
I told Johnny Stu.
I don't know. I'm not doing that for any Republicans I know. So we have these awesome. I mean, one of the things I love about this is the awesome shots of people actually getting attacked by arms, parts of these monsters. And this ending sequence at the pier or whatever it's called, the Santa Monica pier element, it's so violent and so nonstop. Yeah. And I love it. Like, this is why, like, as a kid, certainly, and I'll be honest with you, as a grown-up, because I haven't really matured very much. I love fucking scenes where it's just pure destruction of a town, or in this case, a pier, by monsters and people fighting the monsters. I think this is a really good climax to a entirely mediocre picture.
It was like this looks like this took the majority of the budget and probably the shooting schedule. I mean, like, just to do this, like how, what I mean? It was just so much going on.
And I think it actually says a lot. I know I just said it was mediocre, but it says a lot about the rest of the narrative, that it kept you hanging on to get to this. But when you get to the climax, it fucking delivers. And how many movies in the history of movies can you say have this buildup that delivers exactly what you wanted from the buildup?
I feel like that's tailed off considerably in the last 25 years.
Oh, for sure. And I would say this movie, just as an example of its time, fucking delivers. It delivers. Its third act delivers. It gives you mayhem.
We haven't
even talked about them setting the lagoon on fire.
Oh, right.
Oh my God. Yeah. The lagoon on fire is amazing.
Or the harbor, The Ann Turkel is hosing gasoline onto the water, and it makes the most unimpressive, inferno.
It's not a great fire, but it's a real fire.
Light that fire, and she does it, and it's like.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, the great thing about B movies is they have to shoot whatever they have.
Yeah.
So you have not, like, they couldn't turn to CGI back then to enhance the explosion. They had to deal with what they had, which is why, like, B movies would shoot explosions from 7 different angles and then just cut them all together, so you saw the same explosion that many times.
And there was part of this sequence, in the carnival atmosphere, there's rides, there's a merry-go-round, there's a Ferris wheel. And there's at least one shot that, in any other movie would be a crane shot. In this case, it's a Ferris wheel shot, because it's going up and then it starts to go over. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, tomorrow you should check and see, like, what is the rental of a carnival Ferris wheel versus the rental of a camera crane from a production house here, and like which one
is more expensive.
In order to get the Ferris wheel and get the maximum use of the Ferris wheel, Act 3 is going to be at the town carnival. Boom. That's how you make a movie.
I'm down. I'm down with that.
I love this
Marty,
movie. I really
I'm just gonna bring us to the end of this movie. So there's
Bring
this.
us home.
So our heroes, who like we barely know,
Yeah.
have survived. That's what matters. And then other stuff happens, and then we get. Did you guys watch V: The Final Battle?
Oh yes, yes, I did.
Do you remember the episode that ended just like this?
Yes. Yes. And it's like with a paint job, that could be the same little creature.
It is the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same puppet.
It's very close. It's very close.
This one's just covered in jelly. And
if you mentioned V: The Final Battle, that the voyeur artist on the beach is a prominent character in that miniseries. She plays one of the nurses that's part of the resistance. Is actually there I think she's in the room when their monster baby arrives. Somewhat less
she
bloody,
screams because it's a crazy lizard baby.
Yeah.
I'll just say this about that miniseries, which I've seen so many times I can't even explain it, but it's so disappointing in the next episode when they're just like, yeah, it's dead. What the fuck, man?
You froze for a second time.
Oh, sorry. Did I freeze?
Yeah.
All I was saying was that when the baby comes out in the final battle, in Vive the Final Battle, they're just like, ah! And then in the next episode, they're like, hey, yeah, it died. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit.
That puppet was more expensive than the human baby.
Yeah, that was your to be continued, was a fucking lizard baby being born from a human.
Well, for me, this is the beginning of the Humanoids of the Deep cinematic universe. This is like, this should have been, in the current era, that's a post-credit scene.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, I expect Samuel L. Jackson to come walking out and say, "What are you going to do with that baby?" I have an idea.
With my eye patch.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Marty, wrap us up on this thing. What are your final thoughts about Humanoids from the Deep? Is it an important American film, or what is it?
I wouldn't say it's an important American film. I think it's a classic example of drive-in exploitation cinema.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot going for it. I mean, the effects by Bottin, a James Horner score.
Yeah.
The score is very good on this. Like for the Anderson family reenactment, I was stealing, copyright free shit, but the real thing is actually good.
Well, this is one of those films. This is one of those films where there's a Horner score that doesn't pick up huge chunks of like Star Trek 2 and Aliens. And
oh yeah, he's not.
And that was only a few years after this.
Yeah. So not a great American film, but I'd say a classic of the sci-fi horror genre. If you like 50s horror monster movies, this one it's the grandchild of Horror of Party Beach, or the monster of Piedras Blancas, or Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yeah, that's what it is for me.
I mean, the creature is a far more sympathetic character than these guys, but still a great monster rubber suit,
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right; these are not sympathetic rapist monsters.
No.
Mark, do you have final thoughts about this?
For me, this kind of sums up, the movies that I've picked haven't been great movies, but they were, they had decent box office when they opened, when I've been a guest and been able to pick the movie. And this is one of the first ones. Marty and I have been friends for a very long time. 30 years. I think we've known each other at least 30 years. And, it's like Marty's taste in movies is much broader than mine in terms of liking these kinds of movies. But this kind of movie makes me want to see more of this kind of movie. And
Oh,
so
sure.
in that respect, I say this is what makes it one of my favorite shitty movies, is because
Yeah.
this movie was entertaining as hell. I would watch it again, probably not immediately, but I would watch it again because, as you say, there's so much happening. You had pictures of things that I missed, and I'm
Yeah,
just
and
like,
I had to cut at least
yeah.
40 photos that I was constantly taking. I was like, "Oh, this is a good moment."
I mean,
I was
I love it for
Yeah.
as much as going on, and the fact that somewhere along the line, it's like they got a budget. They said this is our budget. We're gonna do this fucking thing, and they got out there and they did it, and it wasn't encumbered with the mega millions of dollars that are going into movies, and it's just like we're just going to go do this thing, and
Yeah.
I have an appreciation for anybody who can do that, because the
Yeah.
opportunities maybe aren't there as much as they were, at least for the fact that it's like this was in a theater, and it's like that's
Mhm.
also not an opportunity that comes around much anymore. So it's I love it for what it is, but I also love it for the snapshot in time that it is,
Yeah.
from 1980. And I just, I remember seeing this on the shelf, and I remember showing carrying it over, and mom going like, nope.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I mean, I think this
Yeah.
is a fun 80-minute movie. What Roger Corman did to it in post-production is pretty awful.
Yeah.
Which can make it, if I know my wife won't watch this with me because
It would
I mean,
be, yeah,
honestly,
this is a
it's hard to
problematic
watch.
movie.
It's hard
Yeah,
to watch,
Yeah, it's not I Spit on Your Grave, but it's still, I mean, it's Humanoids. So,
Right.
but that doesn't make rape better. So, yeah,
Right.
so you have to live through these sort of, and they're not long, they're fast, but it's very exploitative. I would compare it to Death Wish, the original with Charles Bronson, where and there's a certain element of this movie that is also a rape revenge movie to a degree. But it's like when your rape sequences are like sexually exploitative and they're supposed to turn people on, I have a problem with it. So this movie is weird for me because it's got too much of that, thanks to Roger Corman, not the director of the film who didn't want, or the writer who didn't want any of that stuff. But he put it in so he could,
and it didn't need it
more drive-ins
either.
Did not need it.
Yeah.
Did not need it. There are so few, like, name a movie where somebody's top, like a woman's top being torn off by an aggressor, is necessary. It's never been necessary, and it's just not.
To see it explicitly, I agree. Yeah, it's like implied, sure, but
exactly. It's the difference between I Spit on Your Grave and Revenge. If you've seen those movies. But thank you again, Marty, for bringing this to our show, because I do love this movie. It's got that unfortunate element of it, but it's like you say, it's a Creature from the Black Lagoon spin, for the early 80s, late 70s, that age. And and despite what Roger Corman shoehorned into it, I think it's actually a really good movie. And I think the person who made it, and it's low budget, granted, it's a B movie, granted, it's drive-in movie of the time. But I mean, I think there's an element of drive-in movies that we should celebrate. So this is a movie that is low budget, comes in under 85 minutes. I think it's an 82-minute running time. And through those 82 minutes, if you're bored, I would suggest there's something wrong with you. But there's parts of it where I understand if you're watching it, you will shut down and not pay attention to the rest of it. And that's the problem with it. So yeah, and they tried to fix that. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. But it didn't really work out when they tried to fix it. But anyway, Should we do this, Mark? What do you think?
Yes, let's do it.
Be bad or be best. So, Marty, what we're going to do is we're going to present a couple titles of movies to you.
Okay.
And we're going to ask you to judge. And it doesn't matter if you've seen them before. You can just judge the poster art or, any rumors you've heard. But we'll ask you. Maybe.
He's probably seen
it. Mine, I'm sure. So if it's be bad, because this is called Be Bad or Be Best. If it's be bad, it's so bad nobody should watch it.
Uh-huh.
But if it's be best, it's so bad it's awesome and everyone should watch it.
Okay.
It's kind of a shout out to the former First Lady. I'm going to have Mark do his one first because in doing so, I'm admitting I own it on Blu-ray. Mark, be bad or be best?
Talk to Highlander 2. Oh, you have the Renegade version, which I have no idea what that's about.
Well, in the movie, when you play it, it just says Highlander 2: The Quickening. But yeah.
Yeah, this is what's interesting about this movie. I'll just say very quickly that as interesting as the first one was, this is uninteresting because it has taken all of the mythology of the first one and just went moving all that to the side. I feel like this movie couldn't be any worse if Zack Snyder were to take his multiple millions and invent a time machine and go back and actually be the guy that made this movie. Because I feel like Zack Snyder without a budget is what gets you this movie. So anyway, so for me, that's do I vote or does Marty vote?
Solid, Marty.
Yeah.
Deep sigh.
Be good.
Yes, be good.
Be best.
I think despite the fact that they completely reinvented the wheel for the second movie, throwing in all that alien nonsense, I think it's for the cast. I think it's worth watching.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. I mean, I'm obviously own it on Blu-ray, so I'm a Highlander person.
Yeah.
But mostly because my wife loves Highlander. She does not like the sequels, for the record. I also love Highlander 3, The Final Dimension. I think that's what it's called. Because it's got Mario Van Peebles, who is also in Gunman with Highlander guy, Christopher Lambert. It's really, these movies, the first Highlander, I think, is a bad movie. I'm not a guy who thinks, it blew my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a fun, stupid movie. They fight in parking garages. Great. I'm all into it. Clancy Brown is yelling. That's fantastic. I love it. Highlander 2 is very funny. The thing I like most about it is I feel like there were Back to the Future 2 type surfing sequences. They had things where maybe this is the extended cut, I don't know, but they're on skateboards that levitate and they have.
Is that in this one? Yeah, I don't remember.
Maybe that's Final Destination 3. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm fine with all those movies because
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, they're fun and stupid. All right, I'm going to do my Be Bad or Be Best. Marty, I'm going with this movie called Humanoids from the Deep, starring Emma Samms and Robert Carradine. It is technically a movie, but it was made for cable TV. It was rated R. The MPAA rated it, so therefore it's a proper movie. It's got Robert Carradine and a very small part by Walton Goggins, which is delightful.
What year was it made?
This was in the 90s. I can't remember exactly which 90s it was, but early 92, 93. Corman did a bunch of these. He did a remake of Piranha with William Catt. and a few other remakes of movies for cable TV, but they were technically feature films. So they got MPAA ratings. It's okay. They always say, if you look at it online and you look at what people say about it, they go, well, they really toned down the nudity in this version. And that's true, but that's also because they toned down the rape. So maybe it's better than the original in that element, but it recycles so much from the original. Like the whole dog death sequence is just put back into this movie. The kid who falls off the boat is a different kid from the kid you see in the water, because the kid you see in the water is the kid from the movie that came before. There's tons of that in this movie.
So they use actual footage from the original?
Yes, they recycle footage from the original. Because this is, I mean, we have to remember that these are Corman films.
Yeah.
And Corman is never above doing that. The remake of Piranha, like most of the attack sequences, are from the original Piranha. And then just put some other actress in the water, above the water, but then under the water, you're like, oh no, that's the lady I saw get killed in the first one. You know, that's what Corman does. God bless him. And that's what this movie is. Be bad or be best for you, Marty.
I would have to say be best. I haven't seen it, so I'd want to at least give it a chance.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think you'll have fun. I
mean, really, if I haven't seen it, I can't say no. You know, I can't say it's a bad movie because I have no frame of reference. You know, aside from the fact that I probably.
But I mean, we gave you free license to judge these things, regardless of your.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the cover art was nice, so
there we go. So
well, that's the thing. I'd be interested in seeing, like, you know, because it sounds like I would have to say be best also, and probably for the same reason, which is, one, I haven't seen it, and two, if somebody actually came back to that and said, you know, what if we kind of tone down the exploitative part of this and try to do like an actual kind of science fiction horror film out of it, you know, what would the result be? I mean, because right now I'm planning a multi-$100 million Netflix series based on this in my head, you know, so that's like, because I think that could happen, you know, I mean.
Yeah, why not? Humanoids I'll watch that show.
I would watch this show. I absolutely would.
Get me a decent guest star, like top of show. Can you give me top of show?
Oh my God, are you kidding? You're gonna be the head of the canning company.
Oh, you can get me a series regular?
Oh yes, fuck yes.
Yeah, I would do that in a New York minute. Todd Roberts,
Marty will write. We'll the three of us. Fuck it, we're doing it.
Yeah, let's go. Humanoids from the Deep, the series. All right, so our next and final segment is called The Boost, Marty, and this is when both Mark and I are going to present titles of movies that we like and we think maybe people have forgotten about, or maybe they don't know about, or in any, it doesn't matter. We're just saying, hey, we like these movies. So it's like a positive note to end the show on. So I'm going to start with Mark's, and this is unorthodox. It's not one movie. It's a trilogy of movies. And these are them.
Yes.
There we go.
So, Parallax View and All the President's Men are considered. They're together. They are known as the Pakula Paranoia trilogy from the mid '70s. And I guess it was the Super Tuesday elections that brought this to mind. And just that, if there was a running theme through all of this, of course, All the President's Men based on the true story about President Nixon and his involvement in the Watergate burglaries and the ensuing constitutional crisis that created. But all three of these movies are about the government. Basically, we need to be, as a society, more skeptical of whoever's in power, whether it's a corporation, a government, or any type of authority figure, needs to be questioned. And if they won't be questioned, you need to question that. And so that's why I put that. And I think everybody should watch movies.
I think we're in a difficult political time in that.
And Jeff points out 3 Days of the Condor, which is kind of, it's generally, I would add 3 Days of the Condor to that. It wouldn't be a trilogy at that point, but it definitely belongs in that same category.
Yeah, I love that you called this a trilogy, by the way. I love all these movies. But also like now, like this, the problem is the messaging from our politicians in general has made the concept of the deep state ridiculous.
Right.
And not real. And it's because they're doing what Nazis do, which is to tell you that the people that aren't doing what they're doing are doing what they're doing.
Right.
That's what Nazis do. So that's where we are. But yet in this era, in the 70s, like it really made sense. Like talking, I mean, because we had Nixon, we had,
and Nixon, and you look at Watergate, it's like pre-Watergate, like faith in the government was deteriorating throughout most of the Vietnam War. And then the capper, the period on the sentence was the Watergate situation, where it's like faith in government, and that had been basically unquestioned in the modern era since the end of World War II. Was just shot to hell, and I wouldn't say it ever recovered, but what happened was that there were people that were gladly, I guess came with when Ronald Reagan came in as the president in the 80s, and even really starting during his first run in 1976 was this kind of like, we don't have to be that kind of America. We can decide it's the 1950s again. And, there were a lot of people that were looking for that message, even if it was the wrong one. It was a more hopeful one to them than than what they had been living through for the previous 10 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think, at least as far as these movies, and as Jeff mentioned, 3 Days of the Condor, watch those movies and just, for the era that it was taking place in, it's like, we have historically low ratings of faith in all of our government institutions at this point, but there's still a large swath of the populace doesn't think they can do anything about it. And I think, these movies are kind of like, questioning them is doing something about it, and questioning them hard. So that's why I think that these are timely in that respect.
I think they are timely. Marty, where are you with this trilogy?
I'm familiar with Clute and All the President's Men. I've never seen The Parallax View, so
wow,
I'll definitely check that out.
You'd love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm a big, like, Warren Beatty's a weird thing for me because I know you're not supposed to like him because of his behind the scenes antics, but I always enjoy his movies. I enjoy his presence. He's
and he really has
fun to me.
He really has it in this. You're like, it's funny because you're like, I think the first thing that I remember seeing him in was probably, gosh, I don't know. It was toward, as he was getting older. And this was the first one that I saw with him in his prime. And it was just, I was like, he's a movie star at this point. He is like, it's, you just boom, like he's in the scene and you're there.
Yeah. And he's sort of, I mean, I don't think the movie star thing is a thing anymore.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I really don't think people can like greenlight movies without IP anymore. But what was fun about Warren Beatty is, like, even in his later years, regardless of what you thought about his personal life, he was trying to make fun, artistic movies. One of the ones I always think about is Bulworth. I think it's like kind of a crazy, underrated satire. And
Bonnie
even
and
if
Clyde.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde's great. Yeah, no,
I saw that at the drive-in too.
yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, and Shampoo, and I love all of his 70s
Heaven
movies.
Can
But
Wait.
yeah, Heaven Can Wait, absolutely. And he's always fun, but I think when he got older, he was even more fun than he was in the younger ones because he knew more and had more control over the stories that he was involved in telling, which is part of the reason I like, well, Bulworth. I think it's a very, very funny political satire. If you don't like it, it's fine, but I like it. All right, so we'll wrap up the show with my boost. And this is crazy because it's a movie everybody knows about. And I'm not sure how many people have seen it, but because we were talking about humanoids tonight, I was reminded of Chud. Oh, sorry, Chud.
Oh,
there we go. Chud.
there you go.
They're not staying down there anymore.
That's it.
This is one of my favorite B movies of all time. One, it's a New York B movie, and we don't get enough of those. You have the Frank Henenlotter movies and the Larry Cohen movies, and then what? What do you get? You got Chud.
Can you put that graphic back up for a second?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just want it's for a friend of mine.
I took a photo of the poster that's hanging in my garage.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, and an original, I think video release poster, but it may be. I don't know. I love it. I'm a big Chud fan, and like everyone who came to Chud, I just thought the word Chud was funny, and that's why I was like, oh, I'll watch this movie called Chud, and I think Chud is a punchline at this point, easy punchline. In social situations, people can say Chud. Certainly, if you're Generation X, people can say Chud. And
I think there are people that never seen the movie that know what Chud is.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm trying to boost the movie as a thing that you should actually see, not just reference.
That's right. These Chud pretenders need to knock it off before they've seen the movie.
As a B monster movie, it's fucking solid. It's solid and good. The acting's great. The cinematography is on the fence, but the pacing, the directions, all good. And how much can you do with that limited budget? And they had to blow shit up in that movie. I think they did a great job. And it's got John Hurd, who R.I.P. is just one of my favorite character actors of all time. And Daniel Stern, of course, who we all should love, and Christopher Curry, a staple in blaxploitation movies before Chud, and everybody's like, "Who's this guy?" And he's the white guy in the blaxploitation movies. That's who he is. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think if you're using it as a punchline in any place, you should give it the respect of watching it. And if you don't like it, it's fine. I'm fine with that. But just give it a shot. Marty, how are you on Chud?
Saw it when it came out originally, way back. Love it.
You saw it in the theater?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what cut was in the theater? Was it okay? So there were two cuts I grew up with: the VHS and the DVD. And the VHS, the scene with John Goodman and Jay Thomas, is that his name? That scene didn't come at the end of the movie. It comes in the middle of the movie.
I couldn't tell you which version I saw, because I literally saw it when it came out, and I don't think I've actually watched it again since.
Oh no. Okay. Well,
yeah.
You need to.
I know.
But you liked it, whatever version.
Oh yeah, yeah. I liked it a lot. It feels a lot like Guillermo del Toro's Mimic in a way.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, I got the same kind of creepy urban, a sewer monster kind of thing,
Yeah.
From Mimic also, which I think is an overlooked gem as well.
Oh yeah, Mimic is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great comparison. I hadn't even thought of that, but I realize I like Mimic now because I like Chud. Mark, where are you with Chud?
I have not seen it. I need
Fuck
to
off.
see it.
Fuck off. What the hell? You haven't seen Chud? Is it streaming right now?
I am Chudless.
He doesn't like horror movies.
I didn't like horror movies.
Mark, you have to watch Chud.
I have updated my name on the screen, as you can see.
Chudless. You need to put periods in for that.
Oh, I know. Well, we will.
Sorry, I'm editing.
I have an assignment for you. You'll be here next week, right?
I will watch Chud, and then I can, next time I'm available as a guest, I will pick that
next
movie.
Week, as co-host, you will tell us your experience of Chud.
Okay.
So you have an assignment.
Right. I have homework.
7 days.
Co-hosting comes with a homework.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is. Well, if I told if I told you that I used to work in IT, does that mean you're going to shift the technical stuff to me too?
No, okay. I wouldn't do that.
I'm offering to help though. If you need
well, thank you very much
or whatever.
Actually, if you want to, we'll talk about this. This is crazy. We're still alive. We'll talk about that for next week. If you want more work, I will give it to you. Marty, before we sign off, you have a comic book coming out. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's called The Gun Hand, and
great
it
title.
is. I was a big fan of Marvel Comics Frankenstein, the Monster of Frankenstein series for years, with art by the great Mike Plug, and also recently I picked up the Classics Illustrated Frankenstein, and at the end of the book, there's a ribbon that basically says, and the monster drifted away into the cold and night, never to be seen again. And I thought, well, what happened to him when he drifted off into the North Atlantic, never to be seen again? Well, in my series, it's roughly 100 years after that sequence, and the monster is awakened by a foghorn by a passing ship. He's been floating around for almost 100 years. And the boat rams into the ice floe that he's on, and he climbs on board, and he winds up getting in a fight when he's discovered, and he loses his arm, his right arm, and runs up to the deck and discovers that they're no longer at sea, they're at port, and it's New York City, 1888. And he runs into the city, and eventually he becomes the owner of a magic arm that belonged to an assassin, and it's covered in runes and tattoos, and it still has a mind of its own. It has a mind of its own. So the hand is always, contorted and moving, and it tries to kill him at several locations and get him in trouble whenever it can. There's elements of horror. It's a Western. There's fantasy elements to it, and some humor as well. I had planned for it to run a lot longer than it's probably going to run, because I just got my orders for the first issue, and they were unimpressive, and it's tough. Anyone in the small press will tell you it's tough to get noticed, and I'm hoping once the first issue gets out there and people see it and see the artwork and the story that I'm trying to tell. The artwork is fantastic. I had mentioned Mike Plug, who was the original artist on the Marvel comic. Well, I have Matt Plog, and he's he's fantastic as well. He's really captured the feel of the series, and I couldn't have a better artist on the series. And Mark's seen it. He knows what's coming, and I've got so many great things planned for the future.
I can tell you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say that, this, one of the things that I've always done as a writer, and things that I've looked at as movies and TV shows and other things that I like, especially, like we were just talking about Humanoids of the Deep, there's a tag scene at the end where you're like, what happened after that? Like, I want to know, where does this story go from here?
Crazy
and, yeah,
baby.
right there. And so Marty's done that with this, and he's taken, the Frankenstein's monster character, and he takes him on this kind of emotional journey, that's planned for the entire series. It starts with the issue that's going to be coming out in a couple of months, I guess, or month.
April 24th in
April
comic
24th.
shops,
yeah,
wherever they ordered it.
and they can get it for you if they didn't order it. So
right, anyone hearing this, if you're interested in the book, and I really think if you give it a try, you'll love it.
And it really sets up.
Marty, can you on our Facebook page or our, I'm not calling it X, our Twitter page, just when it's available, can you like point
Sure.
us to it?
If
you just let me know, I'll put an announcement out.
Okay. I mean, I could send you the number, the actual codes that people can use to order the books at their local comic shop.
Would it be better for you if I ordered this directly from a local comic store or online?
Comic shop. I mean, you guys are in LA. There's tons of great comic stores in LA. So, yeah. And I always say, buy from a comic shop,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Whenever you can, it's the best way to do it, because it's when people see it, I think they're going to flip. It's really good.
I can't wait.
I hope so. Thank
you, Marty, for doing the show and bringing us Humanoids from the Deep. I really loved it.
Well, I apologize and also thank you.
That's exactly how to properly end my favorite shitty movie. Mark Haynes, we'll see you next week.
Yes, I'll be here
as guest co-host. I'm very excited. We'll see who the guest is. But this has been great. Thank you. I'm ending the live feed. You guys don't have to leave if you want to keep talking, but people won't hear this from here on.